The billionaire wasn't supposed to be home that night. His private jet had landed hours earlier than scheduled, and the enormous mansion stood unusually quiet under the pale glow of the garden lights. But as he stepped through the marble hallway, something stopped him cold. Laughter. Not the kind that echoed through luxury parties or business celebrations, but small, innocent giggles. Children. 4 of them. Confused, he followed the sound to the back courtyard. And that's when he saw something that made his heart stop. The janitor, the quiet woman who cleaned his offices late at night, was sitting on the ground with 4 identical toddlers surrounding her. Quadruplets. They were drawing with chalk on the stone floor, laughing as she clapped and encouraged them. But when the billionaire looked closer, when the light hit the children's faces, he realized something that made the world spin. Because those children had his eyes. And what the janitor said next would reveal a secret hidden for 4 long years. Stay until the end, because the truth behind those quadruplets will change everything. Marcus Caldwell was a man the world envied. At 45, he was one of the youngest tech billionaires in the country. His company, Caldwell Systems, had built a global empire worth billions. His name appeared in magazines, business journals, and television interviews. But behind the polished image was a man who lived a quiet, lonely life. Marcus had wealth, power, and influence, but he had no family. His parents had passed away years ago, and his demanding career left little room for relationships. His mansion, though breathtakingly beautiful, often felt more like an empty museum than a home. Every evening, after long board meetings and endless business calls, Marcus would return to silence. But there was one person who always seemed to be working quietly in the background. Her name was Elena Rivera. Elena worked as a janitor at Caldwell Systems headquarters. Most employees barely noticed her. She arrived late in the evening after everyone had gone home and spent hours cleaning offices, hallways, and conference rooms. She was gentle, quiet, and always respectful. But life had not been kind to her. For years earlier, Elena had faced a tragedy that changed everything. Her husband had died suddenly in a car accident, leaving her alone and pregnant. Not with 1 child. Not 2. But 4 babies. Doctors called it a miracle, and a challenge. Quadruplets. From that moment on, Elena's life became a constant struggle. Diapers, bottles, sleepless nights, and endless worries about money filled her days. She took every job she could find. Cleaning offices at night was the only work flexible enough to allow her to raise her children during the day. Despite the exhaustion, Elena never complained. Her children were her world. Sophia, Mateo, Lucas, and Isabella. 4 bright little souls who filled her tiny apartment with laughter. They didn't have much, but Elena gave them something more valuable than wealth, love. Still, raising 4 toddlers alone was never easy. Sometimes she had no choice but to bring them with her to work. Most nights she kept them hidden in a small room while she cleaned the building. She prayed no one would notice. And for years, no one did. Until one unexpected night, everything changed. Marcus Caldwell's return home was not planned. A business deal overseas had ended earlier than expected, and he decided to surprise his staff the next morning with an early meeting. But first, he wanted to stop by his mansion. He hadn't visited in weeks. The driver dropped him off at the front gate just after sunset. As he walked through the massive house, something felt different. Then he heard it. Children laughing. At first, Marcus thought it must be his imagination. But the sound came again, soft giggles echoing from the courtyard. Curious, he walked toward the noise. And that's when he saw them. Elena sat cross-legged on the ground while 4 small children surrounded her, drawing colorful shapes on the stone floor. The toddlers looked up, surprised by the tall stranger standing nearby. Marcus froze. Because something about them felt strangely familiar. Their dark hair. Their bright, curious eyes. And when one little boy looked directly at him, Marcus felt a strange chill run down his spine. Elena quickly stood up, panic spreading across her face. "Mr. Caldwell, I'm so sorry," she said nervously. "I didn't think anyone would be here tonight." Marcus stared at the children. "You brought them here?" Elena lowered her eyes. I had no one to watch them tonight. I promise they're quiet. They won't touch anything. But Marcus wasn't listening. His mind was focused on something else entirely. Something he couldn't explain. He slowly stepped closer. And that's when the smallest girl smiled at him. The same smile he had seen countless times in the mirror. For a moment, the courtyard fell completely silent. Marcus stared at the four toddlers, his thoughts racing. It was impossible. Yet the resemblance was undeniable. Your children, he asked quietly. Elena nodded. Yes. How old are they? 4 years. Marcus felt his chest tighten. 4 years. Exactly 4 years ago, Marcus had experienced something he rarely spoke about. A charity event. A night that changed more than he realized. Back then, he had been under immense pressure. His company had just launched a groundbreaking project, and he barely had time to breathe. That night, after the event ended, he had shared a brief conversation with a kind young woman working behind the scenes helping organize the charity. Her name had been Elena. They had spoken for hours about life, dreams, and struggles. For Marcus, it had been one of the rare moments where he felt genuinely human instead of just a businessman. But after that night, life moved on. He never saw her again. Until now. Standing in his courtyard. Surrounded by 4 children. Marcus looked at Elena carefully. Elena, did we meet before you started working at my company? She hesitated. Her hands trembled slightly. Yes, she said softly. Marcus felt the truth slowly begin to form in his mind. 4 years ago, the charity gala. Elena nodded again. Tears began to form in her eyes. I never planned to tell you, she whispered. You had a life, a world far bigger than mine. I didn't want anything from you. Marcus looked at the children again. They were now curiously examining his expensive shoes. Are you saying? Elena swallowed. They're yours. The words hung in the air like thunder. Marcus Caldwell, the billionaire who thought he had no family, was suddenly standing in front of 4 children who carried his blood. At first, he didn't know what to say. He had built companies, negotiated billion-dollar deals, and faced ruthless competitors. But nothing had ever prepared him for this moment. One of the boys grabbed his hand. Are you our dad? The child asked innocently. Marcus felt his heart crack open. For the first time in years. Tears filled his eyes. Elena quickly pulled the child back. I'm sorry, she said nervously. They don't understand. But Marcus knelt down in front of them. He looked at their faces, so full of life, curiosity, and innocence. In that moment, all the wealth in the world suddenly felt meaningless compared to what stood before him. 4 small miracles. His miracles. He stood up slowly and looked at Elena. You raised them alone. She nodded. I did what I could. Marcus took a deep breath. Then he said something that neither Elena nor the children expected. You won't have to anymore. Elena blinked in shock. What do you mean? Marcus looked around the massive mansion. It's too big for one person, he said softly. Then he looked at the children again. But maybe it's perfect for 6. Tears streamed down Elena's face. For years she had carried the burden alone. Now, the truth had finally come to light. And the billionaire who once thought he had everything had finally discovered what truly mattered. Family. Love. And the 4 little lives that changed his world forever.